Welcome, dear friends and fellow connoisseurs of captivating narratives, to a saga that promises to ignite your senses and stir your souls. Prepare yourselves for an enthralling journey into the heart of familial discord, where silent strength erupts into a spectacular display of power, and long-held resentments finally find their glorious, thunderous release. This is not merely a story. It is a meticulously crafted symphony of ambition, dignity fiercely defended, and the breathtaking crescendo of a perfectly orchestrated comeuppance. Join us as we unravel the tale of Veronica, a quiet titan who forged an empire in the shadows, only to unveil its awe-inspiring magnitude at the most unexpected and utterly devastating moment imaginable. The air in the opulent banquet hall, rented for the eagerly anticipated annual family reunion, was a curious and complex tapestry of sounds and emotions. The gentle clinking of silverware against fine china mingled with the polite hum of conversational chatter, yet beneath this veneer of civility, a barely perceptible undercurrent of tension vibrated, a quiet static electricity that hinted at unspoken rivalries and old wounds. Crystal chandeliers, suspended like glittering celestial bodies, sparkled overhead, casting a warm, almost ethereal glow upon tables laden with an exquisite array of gourmet dishes, meticulously arranged floral centerpieces, and a diverse collection of relatives. Most of these faces Veronica had seen only sporadically over the years, fleeting glimpses at forced festive gatherings. This event was ostensibly meant to be a joyous celebration of kinship, a reinforcing of familial bonds. For Veronica, however, it had, for too long, served as a stark and painful reminder of her perpetual status as the other daughter, the one who worked with unwavering diligence but never quite measured up to the delicate, fragile, and utterly captivating image her sister, Olivia, so artfully cultivated. Veronica, at 34, was nothing short of a force of nature, her immense power carefully disguised beneath a calmly composed, almost serene exterior. She was the brilliant architect of a burgeoning restaurant empire, a sophisticated chain of luxury dining establishments that had strategically positioned themselves across the city's most prestigious and sought-after addresses. She had embarked on this arduous journey from absolutely nothing, driven by an almost pathological, relentless need to prove her inherent worth, not to the world or her demanding family, but to the unyielding standards she held for herself. Her meteoric success was not loudly proclaimed. Rather, it was whispered with reverence in elite financial circles, admired with awe by discerning food critics, and intimately experienced by her exclusive, high-end clientele. She preferred it that way. She allowed her formidable achievements to speak for themselves, a quiet yet irrefutable testament to her unwavering vision, her indomitable spirit, and her relentless, almost obsessive dedication to culinary excellence. Olivia, 2 years Veronica's junior, was her absolute antithesis, a stark contrast in every conceivable way. 32 and perpetually indulged, she was a creature of shimmering surfaces and shallow, fleeting desires. Her life, meticulously curated and broadcast across various social media platforms, revolved around extravagant boutique shopping sprees, luxurious spa days, and a precarious, often ill-advised string of investments, funded by a seemingly endless, bottomless well of parental benevolence. Olivia thrived on attention, on being constantly perceived as the delicate, ethereal flower, the one who needed constant protection, the one who, despite her ostensible fragility, always managed to maneuver herself into the unequivocally favored position. Her insidious competition with Veronica was less a healthy rivalry and more a relentless, insidious, undermining campaign, a constant, insidious chipping away at her sister's confidence, fueled by a deeply ingrained, almost pathological jealousy that festered beneath her polished facade. From the very moment Veronica had made her understated yet impactful arrival, dressed impeccably in a tailored, charcoal gray suit that exuded an aura of quiet power and understated elegance, Olivia had been circling, a sleek predator sensing an opportune moment for attack. Their parents, tragically blind to Olivia's manipulative tendencies and beguiled by her superficial charm, still regarded Veronica with a gentle, almost pitying air. "You work so hard, dear," her mother had sighed earlier, her voice laced with a familiar, weary concern as she patted Veronica's arm. "It's a shame you can't relax more like Olivia. She always manages to find time for herself." It was a familiar, well-worn refrain, a subtle yet potent reinforcement of Veronica's perceived role as the indefatigable, somewhat joyless worker bee, forever toiling, while Olivia flitted through life, seemingly effortlessly graceful, untouched by the burdens of responsibility. The dinner had progressed through several exquisitely prepared courses, the conversation a polite, fractured affair, punctuated by forced smiles and superficial pleasantries. Veronica had found herself listening more than speaking, observing the intricate, often painful family dynamics with a detached, almost clinical interest. She answered questions about her burgeoning businesses succinctly, without embellishment, and quickly, deftly steered conversations away from herself, uncomfortable with self-promotion in a family that so rarely genuinely celebrated her legitimate triumphs. Then, inevitably, Olivia struck. The dessert course had just been meticulously served, a perfectly crafted chocolate lava cake that was, Veronica knew with an intimate familiarity, a signature dish of the executive pastry chef. Olivia, armed with a brimming glass of champagne and a confident, almost predatory smirk, leaned conspiratorially across the table, expertly catching the attention of a small, attentive cluster of relatives, including their ever-watchful parents. Her voice, usually a little higher-pitched, dropped to a stage whisper that, with practiced ease, managed to carry distinctly across their entire section of the table, ensuring maximum audience impact. "You know," Olivia began, her eyes glinting with a malicious amusement as she glanced pointedly, almost mockingly at Veronica, "it's really quite admirable how Veronica has dedicated her entire life to food service. I mean, it's not for everyone, of course, but someone has to do it, right?" She giggled, a brittle, slightly mocking sound that grated on Veronica's nerves. "She's always been so terribly passionate about it. Though let's be absolutely honest, it's not exactly real success, is it? Not like, a proper career with actual influence and prestige." A ripple of laughter, polite yet undeniably present, spread through the small, captive group. A few impressionable cousins chuckled nervously, their eyes darting rapidly, anxiously between the two sisters, sensing the escalating tension. Their parents, to Veronica's bitter disappointment but absolutely no surprise, remained conspicuously silent, their gazes fixed resolutely on their plates, their inaction a tacit, infuriating approval of Olivia's belittling, undermining remarks. The familiar, searing sting of humiliation, the burning flush of indignant anger, began to creep insidiously up Veronica's neck, threatening to consume her composure. She felt her fists clench tightly under the table, her knuckles turning white, but she maintained her outwardly calm exterior, her expression a mask of unreadable serenity. She had faced far worse in cutthroat boardrooms and heated, high-stakes negotiations. She would not, absolutely would not, allow Olivia the satisfaction of seeing her break, not tonight. But this time, something felt profoundly different. The cumulative, crushing weight of years of insidious slights, of being constantly diminished, of her genuine, hard-won achievements being so casually, contemptuously reduced to mere food service, finally snapped something vital and irrevocable inside her. A cold, hard, unyielding resolve solidified in her chest, a diamond-hard determination. She had always staunchly believed in letting her unparalleled success speak for itself, a silent yet powerful testament to her capabilities. Tonight, however, it seemed her monumental success needed a very specific, very articulate translator, a very loud, very public one. Veronica slowly, deliberately put down her fork, the delicate clink echoing in the quiet. She pushed away her untouched dessert, her movements unhurried, imbued with a quiet gravitas. She took a slow, measured sip of water, her actions deliberate, almost theatrical. The polite chatter around their table, sensing an ominous shift in the atmosphere, a quiet storm brewing beneath Veronica's deceptively serene facade, began to die down, one by one. She then pushed back her elegant chair, the gentle, resonant scrape of wood on carpet momentarily silencing the entire area, drawing every single eye in their vicinity to her. With an almost theatrical grace, Veronica slowly, majestically stood up. She straightened the impeccably tailored suit jacket, her gaze sweeping calmly yet powerfully across the faces of her stunned relatives, lingering for a mere fraction of a second on Olivia's rapidly fading, smug, and now undeniably triumphant expression. A small, almost imperceptible smirk, a hint of steel touched Veronica's lips. Then, with an almost regal bearing, she walked purposefully to the very front of the banquet hall, past the stunned, slack-jawed family members, past the elaborate buffet displays groaning with culinary masterpieces, and stopped precisely just short of the raised platform where a small, unobtrusive jazz ensemble had played earlier, its instruments now silent sentinels. She turned slowly, deliberately to face the entire room, her posture radiating an understated yet undeniable power, an almost tangible aura of authority. She lifted her hands, bringing them together once, a sharp, resonant clap that cut through the lingering murmurs of the room like a perfectly honed blade. The effect was instantaneous and utterly breathtaking in its dramatic impact. As if on cue, precisely timed, the grand double doors leading to the bustling kitchen suddenly swung open with a dramatic flourish. Not one or two, but a dozen impeccably dressed staff members, waiters with their pristine white gloves, chefs in crisp, starched white jackets, even the distinguished banquet manager himself, emerged, each standing in perfect, disciplined formation, their unwavering attention fixed with almost military precision on Veronica. The entire room, now holding its collective breath, fell into an unnerving, profound silence. An almost palpable quiet descended, so deep that one could almost hear the thoughts racing through people's minds. Every single person, from the most gossipy, meddling aunt to the most outwardly disinterested distant cousin, was now staring, wide-eyed and utterly transfixed, at Veronica and the sudden, completely unexpected, and utterly dramatic appearance of the entire staff. Veronica's gaze, cool, unwavering, and charged with a dangerous intelligence, settled with laser-like precision on Olivia, whose triumphant smirk had, to Veronica's immense, unadulterated satisfaction, begun to falter, her carefully constructed facade cracking under the intense scrutiny. "Funny thing, Olivia," Veronica said, her voice crystal clear and surprisingly strong, carrying effortlessly to every single corner of the vast hall without needing to be raised even a fraction. There was a dangerous, almost predatory edge to her calm delivery, a chilling quality that sent an involuntary shiver down some spines. "You've always been so terribly dismissive of food service. You see it as beneath you, something trivial, without real influence or prestige." She paused, allowing her words to hang suspended in the charged air, allowing the stunned silence to build to an almost unbearable, agonizing crescendo. Then, with a slow, deliberate sweep of her arm, encompassing the entire lavish hall, the exquisite food artfully displayed, the impeccably attentive staff, she delivered the absolute, undeniable killing blow, a verbal coup de grace. "The truth, my dear sister," Veronica continued, her smirk widening just slightly, a subtle hint of triumph playing on her lips, "is that you're currently eating in my restaurant. Everything here, the delectable food, the attentive staff, the very magnificent building we're standing in, it's all mine. Every single bit of it. This isn't just some randomly rented banquet hall, Olivia. This is the Gilded Spoon, one of my flagship, award-winning establishments. And every single person you see here," she gestured expansively to the waiting staff, who now stood with a silent, almost intimidating deference, their collective presence amplifying her power, "works for me. They are my dedicated team." Gasps erupted, a veritable wave of stunned disbelief washing over the entire room, crashing against every shocked face. Jaws dropped in unison. Eyes widened to the size of saucers in sheer, unadulterated shock. Faces, moments ago filled with polite, snickering amusement at Olivia's expense, now registered pure, unadulterated astonishment, a mixture of awe and profound realization. Olivia's face, usually so carefully composed and meticulously controlled, was a vivid canvas of rapidly shifting, chaotic emotions. Initial confusion, then a dawning, sickening horror, and finally, a deep, furious crimson that spread relentlessly from her neck to her very hairline. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly, repeatedly, like a desperate fish out of water, struggling for air. Her parents, sitting rigidly beside her, looked utterly aghast, their carefully maintained composure shattered into a million irreparable pieces, their world turned upside down. The staff, having served their dramatic, perfectly executed purpose, discreetly yet efficiently began to circulate once more, now pouring water and clearing plates with an almost reverent quietness, their synchronized, balletic movements adding to the surreal, dreamlike atmosphere that now permeated the hall. The whispers began, a sudden, excited flurry of hushed, incredulous murmurs. Her restaurant, she actually owns this magnificent place. The Gilded Spoon, I read about this exclusive place in Epicurean Monthly last month. I had absolutely no idea. Veronica owns a veritable restaurant empire. The sheer, breathtaking scale of her previously so quietly hidden success, now so publicly, dramatically revealed, was truly, utterly breathtaking. Later in the evening, as the initial, seismic shock began to slowly subside, gradually replaced by a nervous, almost frantic reassessment of Veronica's true, formidable standing within the family and the world, a new wave of eager anticipation rippled through the room. Veronica, now holding court at her table like a benevolent monarch, accepting a steady stream of sheepish apologies and effusive, almost desperate congratulations from formerly dismissive relatives, caught sight of her impeccably efficient assistant, Liam, discreetly entering the hall. Liam, a sharp, impeccably dressed young man, carried a slim, unassuming folder, its contents a mystery to all but Veronica. He approached Veronica, his face impassive, a perfect picture of professionalism, and handed her the folder with a subtle nod. "Everything you asked for, Miss Hayes," he murmured, his voice low and respectful, barely audible above the renewed buzz. Veronica nodded slowly, her eyes flashing with a dangerous, calculating intelligence that promised further revelations. She opened the folder with deliberate grace, her gaze scanning the crisp documents within, absorbing their crucial information. A slow, knowing, and utterly triumphant smile spread across her face, a silent harbinger of what was to come. She looked up, her voice calm, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion, cutting through the renewed buzz of conversation like a perfectly sharpened scalpel, commanding immediate attention. "Oh, and Olivia," she called out, her voice carrying effortlessly across the still unsettled room, imbued with a quiet power that silenced every tongue. Olivia, who had been huddled miserably in a far corner, attempting desperately to regain some semblance of dignity amidst the wreckage of her pride, flinched visibly. All eyes, once more, turned to Veronica, riveted by her every move. Veronica held up a few of the documents from the folder, letting them flutter slightly, deliberately in her hand, the soft rustle amplifying their significance. "Just a little something Liam brought for me. Seems I've been catching up on some recent market data, and it appears your rather recent investments, dear sister, haven't been performing quite as well as you'd, shall we say, hoped." A fresh wave of collective gasps and astonished murmurs swept through the room, a palpable wave of disbelief. Olivia's face, which had just begun to recede from its earlier crimson hue, flushed an even deeper, more painful, almost agonizing shade of red, a testament to her utter humiliation. "In fact," Veronica continued, her voice utterly devoid of any discernible emotion, a chillingly neutral tone that made her words all the more impactful, all the more devastating. "These meticulously detailed documents indicate a rather significant amount of burgeoning debt. Numerous unpaid bills, a few rather precarious high-interest loans. And it seems your rather lavish condo, the one you're so excessively fond of boasting about on social media, is actually at considerable imminent risk. It could very well be foreclosed upon rather soon, if I'm reading these intricate financial reports correctly." She paused, her eyes locking onto Olivia's, which were now wide with a rapidly escalating mixture of raw fear and absolute, utter mortification. "So, perhaps," Veronica concluded, her voice dropping to a cool, almost surgical precision, each word a perfectly aimed dart, "next time, maybe don't mock people who could quite literally buy your apartment with cash tomorrow. Or, perhaps, even buy the entire building your apartment is so precariously situated in." The words landed with the crushing force of a physical blow, a verbal punch to the gut. The silence that followed was absolute, deafening, a vacuum where sound had just been. Olivia, her face burning with an excruciating, unbearable shame, her carefully constructed, fragile world crumbling around her in spectacular fashion, couldn't take it anymore. She pushed back her chair with a violent, jarring scrape, overturning her delicate wine glass, sending a splash of vivid red liquid across the pristine white tablecloth, a symbolic stain. Without another word, without even daring to look at anyone, she stormed out of the banquet hall, her rapid, furious footsteps echoing loudly in the sudden, profound silence, a humiliated, ignominious retreat. The room erupted, a cacophony of excited chatter. Relatives who had, mere moments ago, snickered and laughed at Olivia's cruel taunts, now surged forward towards Veronica, a chorus of newfound admiration, desperate flattery, and thinly veiled opportunism. "Veronica, my dearest, you're an absolute genius. We always, truly always, knew you were destined for absolute greatness. Is there anything at all you can't possibly do?" They fawned over her, their movements almost frantic, desperate to align themselves with her undeniable power, to bask in the brilliant, reflected glow of her monumental success. Her parents, their faces a complex mixture of profound embarrassment and a blossoming, undeniable, almost bursting pride, finally managed to reach her, their belated, stammering apologies mixed with odd, heartfelt compliments that now rang true. Veronica accepted their belated praise with a calm, almost weary grace, a regal air. She smiled politely, shook numerous eager hands, and offered polite, carefully measured conversation, allowing them their moment of realization. But in her heart, she knew the true, profound victory wasn't in their sudden, desperate adulation, but in the quiet, deeply satisfying, almost spiritual peace of having utterly reclaimed her dignity, of having shattered the fragile, carefully maintained illusion Olivia had so meticulously constructed around herself. She had spoken her truth, not with anger or bitterness, but with an undeniable, unassailable power that echoed through the very foundations of her family's understanding. That night, my sister tried to strip me of my dignity, to reduce me to nothing. Instead, with a single, perfectly aimed stroke, I stripped her of her pride, leaving her exposed and humiliated. For in this world, dear friends, power speaks louder than jealousy, louder than envy, louder than any petty slight. It speaks with the resounding, undeniable truth of accomplishment. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey of triumph and transformation. If Veronica's story resonated with you, if you felt the exquisite satisfaction of her poetic justice, we invite you to like this story, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more captivating narratives where silent strength emerges victorious. We cherish your comments. What did you think of Veronica's epic moment? Let us know below.